Amazon is eating YouTube. What does it mean when you press like on my baby photo? And Becky's tips for cheaper smartphone plans, all that and a whole lot more on Tech News Today.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today, episode 1510, recorded Tuesday, May 10th, 2016.
This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by PillPack, a full-service online pharmacy that combines modern technology, convenient packaging, and personalized service to make your life easier. Visit pillpack.com/twit to save $20 on vitamins and OTCs when you transfer your prescriptions.
And by Wealthfront. Wealthfront is a low-cost, automated investment service and the most sophisticated way to invest your money. Whether you've got millions or you're just starting out, visit wealthfront.com/TNT and sign up to get your free personalized investment portfolio. That's wealthfront.com/TNT.
Hello, this is Tech News Today. This is a show where we talk about the trending tech news, our definition of trending.
Oh, wow, yes. We curate it.
We curate the trending tech news.
Unabashedly curate it.
Yes, with our own opinions.
That's what we do.
I am Megan Morrone.
And I'm Jason Howell, staffer here at TNT's Trending News headquarters. And we're welcoming back to the show Becky Worley from Planet Awesome. How's it going, Becky?
I am doing well, and I will be here representing all algorithmic concepts around news. I will have no bias, and everything you hear will be true.
Mm-hmm. No bias. I think algorithms inherently have a bias of some sort.
What?
It's true.
No.
It's true.
No, can't be.
You may be a robot, but you can't deny it. Good to have you, Becky. Always.
Great to be here with you guys. Lots of cool news to discuss today. I'm excited.
That's right. Let's get to it.
I know you were excited because you were dancing a little bit and the monitor was right next to the camera, and I giggled a little bit at the beginning of the show.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Get my old school jams on, guys.
We know you're getting into it when you've got that like overbite thing going on.
Oh, that's my best move.
Yeah, always.
All right. Let's do this before we make ourselves look silly, even one time in this episode.
Too late.
Amazon made a surprise announcement today that it is rolling out a new video service called Amazon Video Direct. The new service allows video content creators to post their videos to Amazon, giving creators yet another avenue for ad revenue and eyeballs as it goes toe-to-toe with services we are very familiar with. YouTube, Facebook has their own kind of video upload service, Vimeo, of course. Amazon's approaching this, I don't know if it's a little bit different, but they're being very forthcoming with kind of all the ways that you can make money using their service. 4 distribution models. They've got a per-hour royalty through Prime Video. They've got sold as an add-on subscription through Streaming Partners Program. You can do digital rental and purchase through Amazon Prime Video, and then free with ads to Amazon customers. In that case, you would receive, or the content creator would receive, 55% share of the ad revenue, which happens to be the same as YouTube. This feels like it's maybe directed a little bit less towards the people with cat videos and more towards people who are uploading, I don't know, professional video content, let's say. What do you guys think?
I think yes, you are correct. This is such a perfect follow-on to the last time I was on the show. We talked about how video engagement is so important for all of, both streaming networks, for social networks, and that the rise of what I call narrowcasting, meaning very specific content being created for a very specific audience, is really a cool evolution in video content, because it doesn't just have to be broad and kind of generic. I think Amazon is asking for a higher standard than maybe your sort of amateur unboxing. They're looking for someone who's willing to invest in things like having artwork, having captioning, which is no joke. That's a serious element of video creation. And it's not going to be as high end as some of the fully sort of commercial productions that we've seen. It doesn't have to be. It could be just another venue for that. But it also kind of creates, to your point, it's above, straight YouTube broadcasting, and it creates a space for, I don't mean this in a bad way, but mediocre casting. Sort of the production values don't have to be at the highest level, but there's still going to be remuneration. It caps out at about $75,000 a year. So it's not like this is going to be someone's full-time job and they're going to have a studio behind it.
What I find so fascinating about this is that it gives you the option of how you're going to guess that people want to consume your video. So are they going to want to pay for it? Are they going to want to watch ads? Or, are they going to want to rent it? Are they going to want to own it? Like all those things, rather than having like, well, do I go to this service? Do I try Vimeo? Do I think someone's going to want to pay for my content? Do I guess at Amazon? Do I guess at YouTube? So I think that is great. And Amazon can do that because, they have the power behind them to do it. I would be scared if I were YouTube. I would be terrified if I worked at Vimeo.
You think YouTube is influenced or intimidated by the news of Amazon getting into this space? They've got such a lock. Like they have such a head start in this world.
But for those people that are really creating content that people might want to buy, I don't know, and that they really want. You always hear about YouTubers sort of complaining about what their revenue share is.
Yeah, that's true.
I talked to Eileen, our old friend Eileen, who works at YouTube Spaces, and they have some great things that they're doing. They'll set you up. You can just use this space, and they have high-end tools, and you just bring in the people, and you have the idea. So there are areas like that. But I don't know. I think if I were an independent creator, I think this would be great because just more options for me.
Yeah.
There are no creation tools here that Amazon's offering. This is a straight, you have to deliver to their spec, which is HD in a lot of instances, which again mandates a higher level of production than just shooting it on your phone. And so to me, it seems like an alternate distribution channel and a diversified revenue stream, so that you think about Twit or any of the other sort of in-between players that what Leo and Lisa have done with this network is amazing, and they've really bootstrapped it themselves. But in the earlier days, this could have been one of those revenue streams that really made sense for them. And it may still, as there's content discovery options that Amazon may offer if this gains traction.
Yeah, and then of course there's the rights. I don't know how these compare to YouTube or whatever, but they, I was looking through their. I tried to sign up, and it says, you hereby grant Amazon a non-exclusive license to use, reproduce, reformat for online delivery, encode, encrypt, market, promote, transmit. So that's the only thing that I feel a little scared about handing over your content to Amazon, because they've already done some sketchy things with writers and ebooks, just sort of like, yes, come to us and we will publish your content, but they own it in weird ways. They don't pay the same as the regular publishers. So that's what I would also be wary about.
But wasn't the most important word in that non-exclusive?
I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you could do whatever else you want with it. So if you're going to make it for anybody else, you might as well try and maximize the revenue there.
Yeah, this is certainly a good news for anyone who's already making a ton of money on YouTube, because this just means more, potentially a wider audience, a wider net, possibly people that aren't being reached through YouTube. It just means more money, basically.
Why would they cap it at $75K though? Don't you think that's a barrier to entry for the big fish?
Yeah, that's a good point. They are also rewarding top creators with a $1 million per month pool, something they call AVD Stars program. So again, it goes back to this kind of level of quality. Scooterx in chat was, saying why require captioning? That seems like that would, keep a lot of people from doing it. And I think that's actually a big reason why, because it really kind of it focuses in on a certain level of quality. It's almost self-selecting to have that kind of requirement. You kind of know to a certain degree that there's a level of effort that's required in order to achieve that. And as a result, maybe that means better quality content.
Mm-hmm. Certainly more accessible content.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of accessibility and Amazon, TechCrunch reports that blind and visually impaired book lovers can now use the accessibility feature Voice View on the Kindle Paperwhite. The feature has already been available on Kindle Fire tablets, but for $140, you can purchase the Kindle Paperwhite Blind and Visually Impaired Readers Bundle. That includes the Kindle Paperwhite with Wi-Fi, the Kindle audio adapter, and a $20 Amazon gift card. So,
which basically reimburses you for this little breakout dongle that does the audio output more
reimburses you to buy more things on Amazon.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. It keeps it locked into the Amazon world for sure. But hey, I buy a lot of things through Amazon. I actually really like this because there are a ton of books that there are not. And mind you, obviously I'm not hearing or visually impaired, but I would like to have this just because there are so many books that do not have an audiobook version. I think it would be great to be able to do this. What do you think, Becky?
Well, I love WhisperSync. I use it all the time, and I switch between reading and listening. So I just see the benefit as a fully sighted person. I can't even imagine the world it opens for people who are visually impaired. So good on you, Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
It also includes voice prompts to help you navigate the Kindle too. So that's, in addition to just the audiobooks. And it uses Evona speech text, and apparently that's better than previous voices. The other thing I learned reading this is TechCrunch also points out the Kindle now uses open dyslexic font that makes text easier to read for people with dyslexia. I had no idea that existed. But I don't know. That's great. Like you look, there it is right there. I guess it's just easier to read. For people with dyslexia, which is good.
It's easy for me to read too.
Yes.
I can read it. Excellent. I think this is fantastic news. And now I want Kindle. Like I've never been a huge Kindle fan personally because I'll be honest, I don't necessarily sit down in my spare time and read books necessarily. Like if I'm going to do something, it involves my ears. So this is speaking to me. The continuing saga, Greg groaned over there. The continuing saga of the Facebook trending news kerfuffle, if you want to call it that, continues as today the U.S. Senate Commerce Committee wasted no time in opening an inquiry into the allegations that staffers actively censored stories posted by conservative news outlets inside Facebook's service. It sounds a bit more impactful than it actually is in reality. The Senate really has no power over forcing Facebook's hand in either way. And then beyond that, Facebook's VP of Search, Tom Stockey, who actually runs the trending topics team, took to Facebook, of course, to clear the air, saying that the allegations are simply not true. Stockey says there are no such guidelines that prohibit news outlets from appearing inside the trending topics section. Allegations that certain topics like Black Lives Matter were artificially inserted have also been investigated, he says, and found to be untrue. Or do we trust what Stockey says? I throw that softball in the air.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting, and they might have to prove it. I don't know. Like you said, a Senate letter sometimes goes nowhere, but it is interesting. I mean, I want to know how the algorithm works. I would like to know how they chose this. I mean, and I think, the question specifically, please describe Facebook's organization structure for the trending topics feature and the steps for determining included topics. Who's ultimately responsible for approving its content? I would like to know that. That would be helpful to know in this situation.
Well, Megan, I am going to just make your day here because I'm bringing out a new segment on TNT called Reading the Fact. I went to the Twitter fact and I went to the Facebook fact to see what they say about how these trends are created. So production team, I want you guys to get a graphic and some music to go with big announce of reading the fact, because that'll be the most exciting part about this. So let me and I'll preface this by saying I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I tend to believe that big companies try to do what they say, or at least have an institutional goal, and they cover their behinds in their legal terms when they write stuff explaining how they do it. So let's just compare and contrast. Twitter says, this is Twitter, trends are determined by an algorithm and by default are tailored for you based on who you follow and your location, period. This algorithm identifies topics that are popular now rather than things that have been popular for a while or on a daily basis, blah, blah, blah. So they're saying this is how they're determined, who you follow and location. Now on Facebook, it's more about what they don't say. So this is Facebook. Trending shows you topics that have recently become popular on Facebook. The topics you see are based on a number of factors, repeat, including engagement, timeliness, pages you've liked, and your location. So to me, I don't know if you guys interpret it the same way, but Facebook's version of that in their FAQ is much more oblique and opens the door for other factors, including human involvement. Is that how you hear that?
For sure. I mean, they spell out a couple of things, but including implies that these aren't the only things. It certainly leaves a lot of room for interpretation. So then what do we want Facebook to do here? Okay, so if this is in fact happening, obviously people are asking for more disclosure on a regular basis, like maybe a week after anything is decided, having some sort of like report where it shows kind of what the algorithms and the team decided was trending versus, the other data. Is that sufficient, you think?
I don't know. I mean, I just don't want them to be telling their employees, like, to take the conservative news out of there. Let's just, we don't believe that. We believe something different. And then calling it trending. I mean, it's the word trending, I think, that is the problem. I mean, that implies an algorithm, right?
Sure.
That doesn't imply, we don't ever say, like, we're just talking about the trending news. We do talk about the trending news. We also have opinions. We also think about what we've covered in the past, what we like, what we care about, what we think you guys will care about, that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think that, that's what I would just like them to be more transparent about what they mean.
But playing devil's avocado, because I would never advocate for the devil for that term. If you actually, when I went through the Gizmodo article, what I noticed was they only cited one former employee in this position who said that conservative opinions and articles were suppressed, and that none of the other folks in this job that they spoke with confirmed that. And I'm skeptical, to be honest, and I think the vehemence with which Tom Stocky has come out and said, and I'm just reading a little bit here, it says, Facebook does not allow or advise our reviewers to discriminate against sources of any ideological origin, and violating those guidelines is a fireable offense. I'm not that big of a conspiracy theorist that this big of a company would really benefit from that and think that it could get away with it.
Right. Well, and especially if Stocky is coming out, like you say, and saying pretty much all the things that you would hope an official from Facebook would say in response to the allegations, and confirm to us that this wasn't in fact happening. That's what he's saying in many words. In fact, in many terms, he's saying that. So so it would be very easy to hold his feet to the fire if and when it's discovered that it was happening. Let's say, I'm not saying that it did, but it could also, what you're talking about, Becky, as far as like one person saying, this kind of implicit bias. Could have been that person that did it. I mean, and he or she would be telling the truth. But of course, they never clarified that. So
right, and we talked about this yesterday too. Like these were disgruntled employees, who no longer work there. So take that with a grain of salt. But I think, first of all, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think the Senate has better things to do, and I wish.
Well, yeah, it's very interesting how quickly they like hopped on this thing versus all the other things that I'm sure they have.
Right,
on their
they're
table.
like, we understand encryption, we understand algorithms, they're the same thing, right? But I think there's that. But I also think that. I want more transparency with Facebook. I want it. I don't, it's free speech. They're allowed to do whatever they want. I'm allowed to go wherever I want. No one's forcing me to use Facebook. But I can still want them to be more transparent about what they call trending news.
Sure.
My philosophy about what happened here is that they tried to be more competitive with Twitter. They tried to really capture that zeitgeist, even though Facebook is much more of a time-shifted social network. And that in the early days of trying to create that trending list and make it viable, it was a little bit of the Wild West, and you had some cowboys. But I do not think that's systematic throughout the company, is my personal opinion.
Yeah. I think it's hilarious when you see trending topics that are just weird, like something so bizarre. And you're like, oh, good, a computer is doing that. Like no one, it's just some
At least we can blame a computer
stuff.
and not a person.
Like, yeah, exactly. All right. Well, continuing the discussion of internet journalism, we talk a lot about it here, and the internet has not changed journalism all for the better. One news area that has been notoriously hit hard by the internet is local news. Now, one startup aims to fill the void and they want your help. Recode reports on a new city-focused news platform called Ripple that's out of beta today. Ripple.co includes both a location-sensitive news feed curated from other news sites and stories written by volunteer writers, photographers, and videographers who want to create news content about their own neighborhoods. First, what do we think about volunteer internet news contributors, my paid internet news contributor friends?
It's like Yelp and Nextdoor got together and had a party with Yahoo News.
Right, and Patch, which also exists, and I've never
yes,
understood.
Patch. No,
Patch,
right.
And I guess that maybe they're owned by AOL. I'm not sure,
I'm not
but like
really
that's that's been sort of struggling along. But yeah, I mean, a lot of fascinating things.
There are a lot of community members that have a lot of time on their hands and are interested in this sort of stuff. But I mean, the quality level, I think that remains to be seen. Are people on a hyper local level, which is kind of what this seems to be tailored towards, are they producing content that's quality enough and compelling enough that anybody else in that area really wants to read through it? And that's a big hurdle, I think, for a service like this. Not saying it's impossible, but it's certainly a challenge.
Yeah, I don't understand enough of the distinction with Patch to see why they think they could succeed in a market where Patch has sort of gone dwindling and struggled. Obviously, local news is so important to folks, but one thing I'm noticing is I'm getting a lot of my local news from Nextdoor.
Yeah,
I find that the police post on our Nextdoor, and they post what's happening and what it's not. Obviously, anything that's self-reported is not going to be investigative or really taking a hard editorial look. But given the diminishing funds and resources that local journalists have, there's not a lot of deep investigative work being done at a small local level anyways. I think that one of the benefits of something like a Nextdoor and where you do get good information is that people have to use their real names, or at least they're verified as living in the area before they sign on. And I find that to be fairly useful. I think Nextdoor has about 30%, 35% penetration in the U.S. for neighborhoods. That was last year that I read that. But I see something like that as perhaps having more integrated community, as opposed to sort of the perception of traditional journalism where, to your point, Megan, I think volunteer journalists and folks who are doing this without pay may fall short a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I tried to use Nextdoor, and I don't know if it's something wrong with me or my neighbors, but I couldn't. I didn't like being on a social network with the people that live near me. I can't explain what I mean by that, but it's like, oh, I just didn't want to know that about my neighbors. I don't know.
Well, there's an overreaction that can happen on this hyper local level where people really can respond in one way or another and kind of glom on in kind of unsavory ways.
Yeah, there's a lot of complaining on Nextdoor.
Yes.
Like notes that you're too loud, your dog barks too much, those kinds of things.
Yeah, it almost seems like
maybe I'm too loud and my dog barks too much. So.
Yeah, are they complaining about you? That's a good question. It's almost like this is a reaction to kind of the trend that we've been seeing lately on social networks, where like citizen journalism, I can record everything with my phone, and now I can stream it live to the internet, and everybody wants to see that. And so, let's give them that, but with written journalism, written reports. And I don't know if it necessarily translates in much the same way, because just that transition requires so much more thought. And I don't know. I'm very curious to see what the quality will be like on this. And it's also very limited release, so we'll see once it kind of opens up a little bit more. And now it's time for Tech News Today in Space. Need an echo on that. Do you have an echo up? No, Carrot? No, she doesn't have an echo. Okay.
She's working on my fact graphic.
Yes. She's working really hard on your bumper right now. NASA announced that its Kepler spacecraft, which was designed to discover other planets similar in size to Earth, has now more than doubled its number of discovered planets by locating an additional 1,284, up from around 1,200 before the announcement, so twice as much of that. This is the most number of exoplanets announced at any one time than ever before. More than 100 of those new discoveries are roughly the same size of planet Earth, the rock that we live on, and also most certainly covered in rock. So, I mean, Kepler's all about, let's find these planets. I mean, it's about locating them, and with a high, degree of certainty, knowing that they aren't necessarily just a small star and are a planet that might be covered in rock and possibly inhabitable by life of some sort. I don't know, in my understanding of Kepler, whether it's capable of knowing or finding out much more than that. It really just kind of is able to see those planets out there. And beyond that, I guess scientists are just going to have to come up with clever ways to beacon the life forms and tell them to come over here and obliterate our planet.
I think it's using, let's hope that doesn't happen. It's using statistical analysis, I think. So it just is sort of guessing a little bit on what planets are out there. But I think it's fascinating. That means somewhere out there might be another planet where there are 3 people doing a tech news podcast just like us.
Oh, my goodness. It's TNT superposition.
You guys know that I'm sort of space phobic, and I've decided there's a reason for this, because I think now there are 2 types of people when it comes to their reaction to space. There are those that see space as the great hope and the excitement and the future, and then there are people like me who it terrifies because it seems to belie some dystopian future that is happening for my children within the next 5 to 10 years. So I just Kepler, exoplanets, like the Earth, I just...
You just don't want the movie Independence Day to happen, do you?
I can't do the downward spiral space movies and the red sky and the... No.
I had no idea you were space phobic. Oh.
I think I'm space phobic.
Well, don't do tilt brush in VR, because then you're in space and it's super scary and there's no floor.
Okay, yeah. I like it. No.
That goes for all of you, too.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, after the break, how much can you learn about what people like and what they ignore on Facebook? But first, let's take a minute to thank PillPack, the sponsor of this episode. PillPack is a full-service online pharmacy that will make you wonder why you ever settled for a traditional pharmacy. With PillPack, you'll never have to wait around for prescriptions, sort your own pills, or chase down your doctor. Their pharmacists take care of everything for you. PillPack uses advanced technology to sort all of your medications and vitamins by the date and time for each dose. You can also order inhalers, creams, and diabetes supplies, which come in refrigerated, easy-to-open packages. Shipping is always free. Their pharmacists are available 24/7 so that you can speak with them from the privacy of your own home or if you're on the go. PillPack has truly designed their pharmacy to make your life easier and have very quickly disrupted the pharmacy industry. What's great is that PillPack is compatible with most major insurance plans, including most forms of Medicare Part D, and their service is free. That means you only pay the copays set by your insurance provider. Here's what you can do. Visit pillpack.com/twit to sign up now. It only takes 5 minutes to get started. And when you use our link and transfer your prescriptions to PillPack, you'll get a credit for $20 worth of vitamins and OTCs. That's pillpack.com/TWIT. So as we've already talked about today, and the rest of the tech news has been filled with stories about the reach and the responsibility of the notoriously opaque Facebook algorithm. Writing in the Daily Dot, Liz Lenz asks the question, why does a woman's child get more likes than her professional accomplishment? We're going to talk to Liz about that today. Welcome to the show, Liz.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for coming on. So tell us about your experience posting your work accomplishments on Facebook versus posting pictures of your kids.
Well, I had my first child 5 years ago, just a little over 5 years ago. And I found that from the moment I posted we're pregnant on Facebook, that I was suddenly getting tons more likes than I had ever gotten before. Before then, I was just a married lady working a writing job. I guess it wasn't that interesting. Running races, I don't know. I thought my life was great. And then I had a child, and then my social media likes and shares went through the roof. And then, when she was born, again, likes and shares for those posts would always just have so much more engagement than, maybe a link that I would share. And even if I posted, like a little funny thing my daughter did versus a little announcement about my career, so even if it was plain text to plain text, status update to status update, there would still be more likes on what my child did than, what I had done, which is fine. I also find my children more interesting than I am. But I also work online, and I'm just constantly bombarded by people accusing parents of posting too much about their children and posting too much about, I guess the fruit of our uteri. And so that kind of double standard really bothered me. And I've always wondered, like, who are these people who hate me so much because they're always clicking like on my stuff? So I don't.
So your point about like something that you wrote that was funny versus a picture, like you're making that point because we're biologically programmed often to like think a baby is cute. So there's that idea that even if you're like, oh, I'm sick of hearing everything about your kid, like there's people still clicking like on pictures and text.
Yeah, and I understand the urge to just click like on a picture. I mean, Lord love them. Sometimes babies look terrible, and I'll like be scrolling through my feed and see a picture of a baby. I'm like, oh mercy, okay,
sympathy like, yeah,
sympathy like, but it's a baby, So, but so I get that urge, but I also think when you compare apples to apples, I've shared photos of beautiful illustrations that people have done for like an essay that I wrote, which it's gotten like 0 engagement versus, just a picture, a terrible blurry picture of, my child running around with his diaper on and everybody's like, yay.
How much engagement were you getting before you had your baby?
That's so funny. I think that's really hard to compare, but yeah, because Facebook always does that this day in history and or the flashback, the milestones.
Mm-hmm.
My engagement was terrible. So I get to relive that and I've been on Facebook since my sophomore year of college. So I've got a lot of history there to go through and see how terrible I was at engagement before I had babies.
Yeah, my experience has been that I've always found it confusing, both to me and to like my close friends, to have the kind of lines cross, right? Like, and we've talked about this on the show plenty of times. My Facebook feed, I keep it locked down. I keep it pretty private to people who know me really well, or my family or my friends, because in the beginning I kept it wide open. And I found that anytime I talked about technology or whatever, like I got to the point where my actual friends were like, God, I think I have to like unfriend you because I just don't care about that stuff.
So you're making these point as a man that the same thing happens to you when you talk about your work. You don't get.
I certainly had that experience, and it changed how I used Facebook, because I was like, well, I don't want my true friends to go away, and actually, it would be kind of nice to have a service that is just for my personal stuff, so that I don't feel like I'm putting too much of myself out there. On the flip side of that, I also think that people who are fans of work of someone, who like follow someone because of their professional career, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think that they see something like someone having a baby, or these life events that have nothing to do with their career, and they see that as kind of humanizing that person a little bit more, and that connection can motivate them to get involved as well. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's what's happening here, but I know that about myself sometimes. Like, I see someone on a social network that I'm used to following in a very specific, like scientific or technology sort of way, and suddenly there's this human event. I'm almost guaranteed to be like, yeah, that's awesome. You're human too,
I think that's really true, Jason, because I keep my personal and my professional personas kind of separate. I mean, I have work friends on my personal Facebook, but I have like a public Facebook. And if I publish anything there, I published something of like playing guitar the other day, and the engagement level, Facebook gave me a notice that said, this post is performing, 7 times better than all the rest of the stuff that you actually care about and that you make money off of.
Right.
So I think maybe there's also that element of just the personal stuff is really fits the medium, and I think I'm sort of guilty as charged. I definitely am a serial baby liker. And I often don't take the time to read the article. I have a lot of friends who are journalists. I'm like, oh gosh, can I like this? Do I know what this says? Is this like, about you don't want to like something and then have it turn out that wasn't sort of the thing to do, because it's much more complex. Liz, my question is, so much of what we see online that causes engagement, I'm thinking specifically of Farmville, is this idea of social obligation. Like, if I give you 2 plants, then you've got to give me 2 plants. And if I like your baby, you'll like my baby. I mean, I kind of wonder if there's this weird scorekeeping. Do you think there's something around that?
Yes, I know there is. I think if, especially if you get really, really dark into Facebook, your soul kind of goes a little blacker. I think people really keep track of that. Maybe some people keep track of that. And there is this kind of sense of, they didn't like this picture. They didn't like this picture. I personally don't go through and see who liked this or who didn't like this. I did for this talk, I did search back through my feed to kind of see gender breakdowns of who liked what more often. But, I think maybe on some level people might be keeping track, at least subconsciously. But I also think that that it is that human element. And also, I actually don't think it's necessarily problematic that we love these human sides of one another, right? Like that we love to see our babies running around naked, or, the posts about the silly things our kids say. I don't think that that's necessarily what the problem is. The problem is that there's this feedback loop that's coming back from somewhere that's saying, no, that's terrible. I quoted a poll in my piece that said 57% of people find that really obnoxious. And that's the thing that really bothers me. And I want to know where that's coming from, because, I'm fine with people sharing about their lives. I think it's great. I have my life and my career have always been very complicated and entwined together because I write about my life and that is my career. So that's very, where's the line? I don't know. I'm a millennial, So, but that feedback loop that keeps coming back, with sites like Get Off My Internet or STFU Parents, that it's saying like, this is terrible and this is awful. So why are we, and that judgment is coming down harder on women, I think, than men.
Right. You rarely hear of a dad like, you post too many pictures of your kids. No one really says that. I don't think that about you, by the way, Jason. but people don't say it. It's part of just the internet anger that unfortunately comes down harder on women often than men, unfortunately. Sure. So did you look into it? Were there more men or women that were liking your photos of kids versus your photos of work? And did that represent your general Facebook community?
I actually found more women liked my career stuff more. And I don't know if that's just because I've recently become involved with a lot of Facebook subgroups that are supportive of women and female writers. I'm in a lot of these little groups and I love them. And so I have a lot of friends from there. So I don't know if that's what that's coming from, but I do find a lot more men actually like my baby stuff than my career stuff too. So again, I'm not sure where that's coming from. I might play better. My target audience might be more women also. So I don't know. That could have an effect.
Well, Liz, thank you so much for joining us. In addition to the Daily Dot, Liz writes for The Rumpus, and she's been a contributor to the New York Times, Motherlode, Jezebel, and others. You can find her on Twitter at LYZL. Thanks so much, Liz.
Thank you so much for having me.
Take care.
Thank you, Liz.
Bye.
All right, we have an email from Joel Bancroft Connors, who writes, I'm a huge Uber and Lyft fan and user. I can't imagine not having them as a resource. And at the same time, I think they are throwing a first-rank temper tantrum over Austin's rules. My kids are in 4-H, and I volunteer to help out with some of the projects. To do this, I have to get a LifeScan background check that includes, yes, you guessed it, fingerprints.
So yeah, his email was a little bit longer than that, but he makes a good point because I mean, if you've ever volunteered in a school, you have to go through a lot, and he makes the point that it was super easy, and why can't Uber and Lyft do this? I think it was hard for me. Like you have to go to a place and you have to pay. It's not cheap. It's surprisingly weird to have. I mean, it's weird how expensive it is to stick your thumb down somewhere, and it seems like it should be easier and cheaper. But
I don't know. If you're working in the food service industry, you have to go get a TB test a lot of times. And you don't see street cart vendors or, folks who are hiring busboys and waitresses complaining about it. I tend to agree with him. I mean, I can see how this has become a hot potato, but just on the surface, this should not be a deal breaker, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so many issues with this Uber, thing, employee rights and big companies and the technology and all that. But yeah, you're right. It should be easy, and who knows what's going to happen.
Yep. All right, coming up, Becky has some thoughts on ways you can save money next time you're in the market for a smartphone. But before that, let's take a minute to thank Wealthfront, another way to kind of save your money. They're the sponsor of this episode. You invest for the long term for you and your family's financial health, but trying to do that all by yourself, especially the right way, is complex. It's time-consuming. It's confusing, frankly, in my opinion. Luckily, there's Wealthfront. Traditional advisors charge huge fees, between 1% to 3% of what they manage. But with Wealthfront, you pay 1/4% a year. That's it. That's 25 basis points, 0 commissions, no hidden fees. That's less than $5 a month to invest a $30,000 account. There are no additional charges for any of Wealthfront's services, which they have a lot. With Wealthfront's new portfolio review, in fact, you can see if your portfolio is at risk, how diversified your investments are, what you're losing to fees, even minimize your taxes. And you can get started investing today with as little as $500. It only takes a few minutes to sign up, in fact. You go to wealthfront.com, and immediately it goes right to work, monitoring your portfolios around the clock, taking action as soon as an opportunity arises, acting on your behalf. Wealthfront is transparent, it's accessible, and you can view and track all your accounts in one single place. And now Wealthfront can track both your Wealthfront and non-Wealthfront bank and brokerage accounts that they'll provide in a summary of all of your assets to you. You can also see every trade that Wealthfront makes on your behalf in your dashboard, on your desktop, or with their mobile app that you can download onto your phone. Wealthfront's process is based on Nobel Prize-winning academic research and the best investment practices. And we've heard from many Twit fans who've used Wealthfront and love how they can diversify their portfolios, buy stocks from in-demand companies that we talk about all the time on our network: Apple, Amazon, Facebook, all the biggies, all commission-free. Wealthfront manages almost $3 billion in client assets, and it's growing rapidly every single day, so you have no reason to wait any further. Invest in your future today with Wealthfront. Visit wealthfront.com/TNT to sign up. You'll get your free personalized investment portfolio. You'll see the customized allocation that they're going to recommend for your specific profile. And just for Twit listeners, if you sign up to invest, Wealthfront will actually manage your first $15,000 entirely free of charge for life. Join the many Twit fans who've seen huge success with Wealthfront and claim your offer today. That's wealthfront.com/TNT.
TNT's fan of the day is Chris Bodden on Twitter, who is a software engineer at Microsoft on the HoloLens team.
Hello.
He says he watches the show on his HoloLens. What?
What?
I know.
This happens? Like when I first saw this picture, I just thought it was a really big TV.
No.
But that's the beauty of HoloLens.
Yeah.
It puts a really big TV in your living room when you're wearing it.
Thanks, Chris. If you want to come to the studio and show off your HoloLens, now I'm no longer a VR. I'm still an AR virgin, but I'm not a VR virgin anymore. So I'm ready to try it if you want to come in to the studio.
We'll do a show entirely locked away in AR and VR,
Yeah.
our weapons of choice. You'll be HoloLens. I'll be HTC Vive. Becky, Oculus?
I'll referee.
Okay. Safe.
I'll keep you guys from bumping into each other.
Good move.
Show us how you watch or listen to the show. Take a picture, record your video, post it on Instagram, Google+, Twitter, Facebook. Use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT, and we will find it.
All right. So, Becky, I'm making an educated guess that most of the viewers and listeners have a smartphone, and you have some thoughts on ways to save money on those smartphones. Tell us a little bit about what's on your mind.
Yeah, this is less reporting and more crowdsourcing and fact checking and a conversation. So, okay, for you guys and anybody else who's in the studio, tell me what they say. How many of you guys lease your phone or pay monthly for it, and how many own? Who's the owners? Owners, raise your hand.
Okay. Everybody.
Well, technically, Leo is the owner of my phone, but yes, it was.
They were bought. They were purchased outright. Yes.
And what's in the studio? What are people saying?
Everybody's owners.
Okay. All right.
We're surrounded by owners right now.
Okay. Well, it's as I've been doing some research, I'm a consumer reporter in my other life. So as I've been doing some research on this, and I'm always going back and checking all the stuff about buy versus lease, and it's confusing. And that's on purpose. Mm-hmm. They're doing that to try it. I mean, there's really no benefit to the cellular companies to make this completely transparent, because it's usually to their benefit. But it seems like it used to be such a no-brainer that if you bought the phone and you had prepaid, that was definitely the cheaper way to go. It seems like there are some instances now where it's about equal. Not in like your track phone kind of a case, but when it comes to the big four. And I'm sort of fact checking that a little bit. So if anybody has any really strong opinions, you'll hear me say my Twitter handle's @bworley. So ping me with your strong thoughts about this. But I don't know if you guys read in the Atlantic the other day this really fascinating story about how almost 50% of the population struggles to have $400 for an emergency fund on hand. So buying those phones outright is not an option for a lot of people. So it's actually kind of good news that we're seeing more of the monthly plans that are not as different in total price you'll pay over the lifetime of the phone. And I'm just curious what folks have as their thoughts and their own personal experiences. I've always been a pay monthly, and now I'm going to a buy outright place with that. And so just that's one thought. Secondly, trade-ins. What do you guys do with your old phones? Jason, what do you do?
I have a big drawer where my old phones go when I'm done with them. I mean, basically. But the reason I hold on to them is probably different than a lot of people, because I figure, I always get Android devices and I hold on to them for the show, and just kind of because they're kind of history to me a little bit. Like, I would never get rid of my Motorola Droid, which was my first Android device. Like, I'm sure I could trade it away or whatever, but I could have, not now. But yeah, I keep it for that reason.
Well, I had a Samsung Galaxy S5 that I still am paying $15 a month for. It was the sort of, my daughter dropped it and it was broken. I thought beyond repair. But then Jerry, who works here, he said, "Does anyone have one?" I was like, "I have one that doesn't work." He gave it to his son and got it working again. So yeah, it was lost to me.
So you're paying for
Jerry's son's phone, as opposed to it sitting in the drawer at home.
Yeah, right. And paying for it still.
Yeah.
And I have some of the ones that I've kept for my kids, thinking, these will be great for when we're on the plane or for music. But I've definitely got too many. So that's, one of my big ways that we waste money on cell phones is by not turning them in. I just checked the numbers. So at Apple, if you're going to trade in at the Apple store, you can get up to $300 in credit. They'll give you $50 for a 4S, $150 for a 5S. You get more money if you sell it on eBay, but it's not as easy, obviously. Yeah. It's about 15 to 30% more if you do that. You've got your Gazelles and your, what's it called? Next Trade or something like that. But those are sort of... I think. Well, I'm getting to that. Yeah. I'll get to that one in a second. But there's all these services like Gazelle that will, pay you. Those are a little less than eBay, but maybe more than your trade-ins at the Apple Store and such. And the Galaxy S5, just so you, 5S or whatever, S5 was about $150, I think, Megan. So Jerry owes you that.
But working though, it had to be working. That's right, the other thing about this. It's like this constant upgrade. Like, especially when you think about handing it over to children, it's like you have to hand that phone in working. Like, in order to get anything for it.
Yeah.
So this is the next place that we waste money and where money can be saved. Motorola says 30% of all U.S. phones are cracked. I would say 100% of all teenagers' phones are cracked.
99.99%.
That's right. Say. There's that one really good kid who's in the chess club. His is not cracked. So, really interesting to look at the insurance plans. And so if you're a parent of a teenager, I'm pretty sure you should be getting an insurance plan. I had no idea how much the carrier insurance plans, Verizon and AT&T were like $132 a year plus a deductible of $199 on Verizon. That doesn't even make any sense. Whereas if you were doing it through Apple Care, it's $64 a year. And then you pay like $79 if you get it wet, or I think it's if you crack the screen. I don't know what the wet deal is, but regardless, Apple Care. If you have a teenager.
Yeah, some sort of coverage. And might I actually tack onto this? You can include this. This one's free, Becky, because I've used this now not once but twice. But if you purchase your phone outright using a certain, like a Visa signature card is what I've purchased both of the phones that I've dropped and cracked within the first like 90 days of owning them. The Visa signature specifically, you got to check your terms. But if you do the full purchase on a credit card like that, you get built-in warranty protection. And many times they double the manufacturer's warranty. So if you have an instant year's worth of coverage, they'll give you a second year. Just for making the purchase on a credit card. In my case, in both cases, pretty much a free replacement of my phone because I dropped it and cracked it in the first 90 days, and they would still cover it for up to a year to a certain cost of coverage, and then I would pay the difference to replace it. So,
ooh, that's a good tip. I'm going to put that one in my arsenal. Thank you.
You bet.
And you mentioned Square Trade earlier. They're also, you can use this for Android phones, obviously, $60 a year, $99 an incident. Also a good option. You can use them on iPhones if you live far away from the store. It's nice to be able to go in and get that traded in. And then the last one, family plans. You don't have to be family to be on a family plan. Family plans can save you about half. The specific line that I was looking at, 4 lines, let's see, on T-Mobile, if you get 4 lines, it's about $55 a person. But if you did it on your own, it would cost about $95 a person. So that's a little tip.
Yeah.
And the final one is data. Do you guys know how much data you use every month? I mean, we're kind of weird because we're journalists and nerds. So, like we're going to stream everything. But have you done a data audit?
I don't know if I've done a data audit, but I follow it kind of semi-regularly. And I know that my cap with my plan, I mean, it's not a cap. Well, it really is. It's 5 gigs. It's basically unlimited data, but at 5 gigs, it ramps down to 2G. And I never hit that because I'm always on Wi-Fi. So that works for me.
Yeah. I'm always on Wi-Fi too.
I think I read that the average American uses 2.9 gigs a month, but that a third of Americans use less than 500 megs a month. Wow. And so, I was just checking on my carrier. 5 gigs is $50 a month. 15 gigs is $100. So if you're overbuying because you're still in that fear of overages world, that could be like $600 a month. I mean, $600 a year in savings.
Yeah.
And doing one of those data audits is not hard. They're actually making it easier now. So like I logged into my carrier and went to billing, and they have this little nice tool graph and show me how much I'm using every month. And they've made it easier. It's worth your time to do it. Yeah.
Do data audit. Add it to my long to-do list.
Yes. So these are just some of the tips that I came across. But like I said, I'm more crowdsourcing. If anyone disagrees with these completely or has better ideas, please ping me on Twitter @bworley. I would love the feedback. And also any added tips are much appreciated.
Fantastic. I think we all like saving money, so.
We do. Who doesn't
like saving that?
Becky, thank you so much for joining us again. You're @bworley on Twitter. Is there any place else people should go to see your work?
I will be on the Good Morning America all next week, I think. And otherwise, I will be back at my real home, which is TNT sometime soon.
Oh, well, thanks for saying that at least.
Yes, and definitely send your tips to Becky @bworley on Twitter for your cell phone saving tips.
Yes. Thank you, Becky. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Have a good night. Tomorrow's guest, I'm super thrilled. We're welcoming back Ryan Hoover from Product Hunt. He's going to join us to kind of talk about the news, and I'm sure we're going to do a little product hunting as well. I'm guessing, just a hunch. TNT records live every Monday through Friday at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, 12 a.m. UTC at twit.tv/live. You can be a part of the show by emailing us. That's TNT@twit.tv. You can also leave us a short voicemail at 260 TNT Show. And find the show on Twitter. We are at Tech News Today TV.
You can subscribe to our show, and we would like you to go to twit.tv/TNT. And if you want to tweet at me, I am at Megan Morrone.
And I'm at Jason Howell. Thanks to our technical director, Kara Cole, and all the folks, Greg. See, I didn't cough your name today, who help us produce this show every single day. Thanks to you for talking tech with us today. We'll see everyone here tomorrow. Bye.